Hey everyone, it's Mike from Air Raid Attack Podcast. Let me talk to you for just 1 minute. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain to you in 5 simple steps. Number 1, it's free. Number 2, there is creation tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Number 3, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Number 4, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Number 5, it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So, how do you sign up? It's simple. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Enjoy the show.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's yours truly, Michael here, your host of the Air Raid Attack Podcast here on the Unhinged Sports Network as we're way beyond the halfway point of your work week. And hopefully your week is going well. I know here where I'm at, here in the great state of Oklahoma, and practically a diehard, literally the center of this great country, Oklahoma City. I've been pretty busy. But nonetheless, I'm here for the next hour talking sports with you. Not much on the agenda because it's the first time, and I don't even know how long, that I'm actually going solo today. That's right. It is solo, but it gives me enough time to kind of talk about a few things that came up. Again, nothing major going on, of course. The NFL draft coming up. We'll kind of talk slightly about the Denver Broncos and what they should be doing. I'll go over Oklahoma City Thunder, the new hire of the women's basketball for the OU Sooners real briefly. The New York Yankees, still early in the season. A lot of baseball still to play. But what we do know is that Garrett Cole is the ace, and everyone else, well, it's not a good look if you're the Yankees in the pinstripes in the rotation. That and so much more here on the Unhinged Sports Network. That's what you're listening to, and welcome. It's a wonderful journey, and like I said, I'm solo today, so buckle in. It's going to be fun. But nonetheless, how can you find the show? Air Raid _podcast on Twitter. My personal on air with Mike. The Unhinged Sports Network is at Network Unhinged. Catch them on the unhingedsn.com. You can listen to me or other podcasts such as the J-Morning Show, the Far End of the Bench podcast, the Time to BS podcast, High Low Sports podcast, and the Insert Name FC podcast, and so many more. While you're at it, check out the merchandise on the Unhinged SN podcast.com. Check them out. Check the merchandise out. Get your favorite podcast gear and rep them. Heck, I'm going to be honest with you. I would love to see you guys purchase merchandise of your favorite podcast, whether it's the Air Raid, whether it's the J-Dash, whether it's the High Low, whether it's the Far End of the Bitch, whatever it might be. Send a picture. Tag us. Hashtag Air Raid _podcast or hashtag Air Raid Attack Podcast. I'm thinking of the actual handle, but nonetheless, it's going to be a good show. Anyway, so we're talking here, right? And Of course, so much going on, and you got the draft, OTAs. The Broncos players are, already in the process of skipping the OTAs due to COVID-19. Got some heat from it from some people. Some are supportive. It depends on your personal stance. You got Oklahoma football in spring, but let's talk Denver. And if you follow me on Twitter, and if you're currently listening, whether it's live here on the Unhinged Sports Network, one of the encore presentations throughout the week, whether you're listening to us on iTunes or Google, whatever the case may be, and you follow me on Twitter, you might have saw the tweet that I posted was Drew Lock. A lot of people actually gave me some heat in regards to Drew Lock, and a lot of people said, "Well, dude, give it up. This guy is worthless. This guy is whatever the case may be." And rightfully so. I respect everyone's opinions, and rightfully so. The issue that I have is we look at back at 2020, and 2019 he played 5 games. The season was already over. At that point, it was time to see what can Drew Lock even bring to the table. Seriously, that's what it was. You were already out of the playoff contention. You go five, you got 5 games left. It doesn't make a difference if you go 0-5, 2-3, 1-4, 3-2, 4-1, 5-0. It just doesn't. Because at that point, you got to see what do you have in this kid. Now, is it a fair adjustment for the 5 games? Absolutely not. But at least you know what you got in Drew Lock. At least to work with come 2020. So fast forward to 2020. Of course, we got COVID hit. So now you're limited, no practices, so on and so forth. Everything literally changed. The whole sports world, let's just be honest, there's more important things than just sports. The world, the life that we currently live in, everything is changed. And it depends on where you're listening from, whether you're listening, excuse me, whether you're listening in Oklahoma, the United States. I got listeners in Canada, down in Mexico. I got Iraq. I got across the Middle East. It doesn't matter. Every country has been impacted some sort or matter by COVID-19. So we all know that our personal life has changed, whether it's you got to wear a mask, regardless of where you go. You might have to social distance. You might have to stay away from somebody, from 6 feet away, or schools or jobs. You're working from home still. I know a lot of people are still working from home, and we're almost 2 years into this thing. It doesn't matter. So so we're looking at Drew Lock here, and every player, now we're hitting the Von Miller. Now he's out for the season. Literally the last the last play of the final practice before the season kicks off. He's hurt. Portland Sutton's out. You got players coming out saying, well, I don't want to play. Jawan James, me personally, cut him, but it is what it is. The offensive line still became an issue. We weren't for sure what Garrett Bowles can bring to the table come 2020. You just signed Melvin Gordon. What can he bring? You got Philip Lindsay, who dealt with injuries throughout the week. Or throughout the year, I should say. Or a week, depends on how you look at it. The defensive side was constantly out there. Drew Lock was injury prone. They swapped the quarterbacks like it was nothing. So my take before I give you who I think the Broncos should look at, who they should consider, is you've got to give Drew Lock another year, full year. Can he stay healthy? I don't know. Hopefully he can for his own sake. Hopefully he can. If he can stay healthy, if this offense can stay healthy, if this offensive line can continue to improve, don't know why I was stuttering there, but I was. If they can improve, Garrett Bowles continues to improve up a phenomenal season. Of course, he just got linked to an extension. If Bowles can continue to improve, if Reisner can continue to get better, he's a phenomenal player. But if he can continue, of course, coming in as a rookie practically as well. If Lloyd Cushenberry, the rookie out of LSU, the center, if he can continue to be what we believe in Broncos country he can be. Juwan James, I don't know what to tell you with that. My personal opinion, let him go. Cut him, give him his dues, and let's get out. But you look at it, of course, Elijah Wilkinson, I believe he moved on. Glasgow, if he can continue to what we know what he can do. The right tackle is the biggest issue. The offensive line's good. They're young. They're talented. I still continue to say, I know a lot of people's talking defense. I know a lot of people's talking quarterback. If I'm Denver and I had the option of trading up, Swell is my target. Regardless if he can play right tackle or not, he's my target. You got to get Drew Lock some blocks, some protection. Not going to tell you it's going to be 100% correct. But who do I personally think? Well, depends on what source you're going after. Me personally, I'm not 100% sold on Drew Lock. I think he can get the job done with a 100% healthy offense. Who he has in receiving Judy, Patrick, Sutton, Fant, Hamler, Deshaun Hamilton at times can play. Heck, I wouldn't mind seeing Devontae Smith. But you got healthy receivers. Melvin Gordon, Mike Boone, the recent acquired running back from Minnesota. They have a running game that can run. That's going to open up a lot for Drew. Give him 100% healthy offense. And I get before you say, well, you can't predict and you can't foresee if that's is true. Injuries is a part of the game. If you can give me a healthy Drew Lock at best, let's see what he can do. The defense I thought improved by getting Derby, by getting Fuller. Excellent moves. I'll give you my top pick, who I think, after I announce who I think they should consider, they should look at, and here's my final pick. But here we go. A lot of people think, and again, as I mentioned, right tackle. Who can play right tackle? He can play both. Tackles Jalen Mayfield, Michigan. Is he a top 10 pick? In your opinion, it probably could be. However, if I'm Denver, to avoid paying Mayfield the number 9 pick slot money, trade him down. Trade down. I don't know. Go 19, go 20, go 18. Middle of the pack. Pick him up. Because here's why. Drew Lock already has weapons. If you can get Mayfield, a Big Ten conference player, phenomenal player at Michigan. You now have two bookend tackles. You got Bowles on left, and you'll have Jalen Mayfield on the right. Again, you're still young on the offensive line. Obviously, let's be honest. Obviously, Jawan James doesn't want to play football. He doesn't. He's using whatever his tactic is, and he's going to get what his money is, and that's it. I'm not 100% sure if he's going to play this year. I don't think he's even made an announcement. But Jalen Mayfield is a perfect pick because you fit the right tackle spot. You give Drew Lock more protection. You continue to build around your quarterback. Now, of course, you want to have your people. And then Twitter, on air with Mike, I made a tweet with a gif of Drew Lock. And someone says, really, or gotta. I talked about how you gotta continue to build around him. You gotta continue to be dealt, to work with them, to have him your quarterback. Now, for all the Broncos country people that want to have quarterbacks in Denver, let's go it. Your realistic option is Trey Lance from North Dakota State. Why a quarterback? Personally, give Drew Lock competition. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Give Drew Lock competition. If you want to consider another one, go Justin Fields, the Ohio State quarterback. I mean, obviously, I thought the Panthers at one point in time was going to get a pick a quarterback, whether it's Trey Lance or Mac Jones or Justin Fields. But obviously, that's a no-go when they traded for Sam Darnold with the New York Jets. I mean, it's a fair question. It's a fair answer, I should say, that Drew Lock hasn't done enough to secure the starting job. The question is Fields' talent too good to pass up? If you listen to the Time to BS podcast, which is another podcast on here on the Unhinged Sports Network, the host Dan and I, we've talked about in previous shows. And I'm sure if you looked at the description of one of his shows, you can find it. But my personal opinion on Ohio State quarterbacks is just like, for the most part, for Oklahoma, for the exception of Baker and Kyler and Jalen Hurts, is they don't pan out too well. Dwayne Haskins, where is he? Terrell Pryor went wide receiver. Cardale Jones went XFL, and that was it. Who I thought looked out of shape. He played phenomenal football in the XFL with, I believe, DC. That was about it. I thought he played one good game of football, and that was it. That's my personal opinion. One good game of football for Cardale, and that was it. But if you want to continue. Now, an interesting one is what I'm hearing now is Trey Lance he's a day one. Could be a potentially day one starter. I think he's better than what Carson Wentz was at North Dakota State. A lot of people's comparing Trey Lance to a potential Patrick Mahomes, to a potential, I don't know. Lord, I think not maybe so much of a Carson Wentz, but I think he's more faster, but he can run. Don't think he can't. He can run. Denver has weapons. But the interesting one is Mac Jones of Alabama. And here's why. Pat Shermer's connections to Alabama's pro-style staff could potentially leave Denver in the mix to drafting Jones to be potentially their franchise quarterback. And I saw Mac play in Alabama. Alabama's team last year was dangerously good. Probably the best Nick Saban football team in forever. That team was good. That team was better than LSU's 19 team, 2019. But overall, that team was good. So put it this way. Why would I have Jones if Justin Fields is there? Why would I pick Mac Jones over Justin Fields? Mac Jones, a one-season starter, backed up Tua Tagovailoa, was a third stringer when Jalen Hurts was there. I pick that great high quarterback, highly recruited. Now all of a sudden, he's a one-hit wonder at Alabama. Talent built around him with Waddle and Devontae Smith. It makes no sense. But you look at it, I think they did see a lot in Jones in person. Of course, when they scouted Jerry Jeudy, I think it's an option. I don't see it happening, but it's an option. Now, going on to my two picks. Who do I think personally I would love to see in Denver, who I think they're going to go with in Denver? First and foremost is Micaiah Parsons, the inside linebacker out of Penn State. Here's why. More than likely, you're going to have the top 5 quarterbacks off the board. And that's going to be your Trey Lance, your Zach Wilson, your Trevor Lawrence, your Justin Fields, potentially Mac Jones. You're going to have your 5 quarterbacks off the board. So at that rate, at number 9 for Denver, even if you wanted to go quarterback, those chances are now done. So now you have an immediate need that they need to go and continue to build. George Pitt has done a phenomenal job with Denver's offseason. You continue to fill and build the need of the team. Now, who do I think is probably going to be the more logic answer is Micaiah Parsons. He starts out at one of the linebacker positions in week 1. His athletic frame presents a humongous nightmare for teams looking to run off Denver's defense. He's quick to the edge. He's a pass rusher. He fits the Vic Fangio defense. Obviously, like I mentioned, They've already upgraded their corners when they signed Kyle Fuller from Chicago, Ronald Darby from Washington. You've got to improve the linebacker group. Parsons is easily a every down player. However, I know Dan mentioned this on Time to BS once. He's got some character questions, which I'll say I'm not in Big Ten country, but I was unaware of that. So, can they work with him if on the characteristics that he may have? I think he could. I think the defense needs to get some help. Parsons, like I mentioned, is going to be a huge upgrade in the inside linebacker position. Why? Well, I mean, why not? He can also rush off the passer on third downs. He's honestly, in my opinion, best off the ball backer in this class. Just imagine Parsons, Chubb, and Vaughn. On top of your corners that you got, Simmons at safety, Shelby Harris on the line, Drummond Jones off the line. This list goes on and on. Now, at the end of the day, here's my selection on who they should draft. None other than corner from Alabama, Patrick Surtain II. Why? It's simple. He's the most polished player in this class. Yes, they signed Darby. Yes, they signed Fuller. I get it. However, you look at 2022. So you're looking at the 2022 offseason. Bryce Callahan's contract expires, and Kyle Fuller signed a 1-year deal. So, next year, you're already back at the need again at corner. So, who do I think is the most logic? Well, my honest opinion, and who I'm going to go with, is Patrick Surtain from Alabama. That's who I think. Of course, let me know what you're thinking. AirRaid_podcast on Twitter. Hashtag AirRaidAttack Podcast. That's simple. Join the show. So, speaking of join the show, kind of in between topics here. On the 28th of April, it's going to be an honor to have a special guest on the 28th. So, I'll be in Arizona from April 30th to May 4th. I'll be back in Oklahoma City the 4th, but the show will be ready to go for the 6th of that week. So the 6th of May, it will be a premiere show with Derek Youngblood. He is the athletic director at Barnwell High School in South Carolina. Will be our special guest on May the 6th. So make sure you stay tuned, and you don't want to miss that one. It's going to be a great show with Coach Youngblood, the athletic director of Barnwell High School in South Carolina. Looking forward to talking football. I'm sure we'll be talking life and whatever else may come our way. I may pick his brain on Shane Beamer, the head coach that recently got hired by the University of South Carolina, the former Oklahoma Sooners special team coach down here in Norman. So looking forward to that. Um, so we'll see, we'll go from there. But again, next week is going to be a regular week on Thursday. Live premiere on Thursday. Of course, the episode drops immediately after the show is aired. Yeah, maybe not necessarily immediately, but it drops on Friday nights. Friday mornings, I should say, straight at midnight. On Friday mornings, the new episode drops on all your major platforms and on Stadium CTV. And then the next week, like I mentioned, regular. Then the week after, it's a 2 recording podcast. Looking forward to that. I mentioned on the 28th, and then of course record on the 27th. And then the following week, I'll be out of town in Arizona, so nothing will be going on that week. But following that week, of course, in May, hoping to have 2 big-time guests, but right now we're in the works of that. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, it's going to be fun. The best is yet to come. Again, listen to the Air Raid Attack on the Unhinged Sports Network, unhingedsn.com, at Network Unhinged on Twitter. Not just listen to me, but man, we got talent up the wazoo on that network. Boy, far into the bench, Gerda Garley, J Show, Time to BS, High Low. I mean, the list, honestly, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And you want to check all of them out. And follow them on Twitter. Definitely follow them on Twitter, and you will not be disappointed. Julie Anderman, real quick. Of course, he retired. If you missed it or you went under a rock, he retired. I was asked, do I think he's a Hall of Famer? I think that's the biggest question so far. Is he a Hall of Famer? And my personal opinion, I say no. Just for the simple fact that you put him in I think he's a system wide receiver, first of all. Again, just like people say, well, Tom Brady's a system quarterback. Well, not necessarily. He won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. And he's not a system quarterback. He's a winner. But you look at it without Brady, and I know he retired on injuries, but he's not a Hall of Famer. Heck of a receiver. I'm not taking away what he did with New England and in the Super Bowls. Of course, I believe he's the 2018 Super Bowl MVP. But he's average at best. If you take away Brady and you put in a average quarterback, let's say you put in a Carson Wentz, you put in a I don't know. Don't know if it's a fair adjustment, but what? Matt Stafford. I wasn't a huge fan of Matt Stafford. Maybe who would be a fair adjustment? I still say Carson Wentz. But anyway, you put in an average quarterback that's going to give you average results. Maybe like a Matthew Stafford that had like a Calvin Johnson that did some things, but even though Calvin Johnson I still think was a Hall of Famer. But my personal opinion, at least not a first ballot. But nonetheless, congrats to Edelman. Wishing the best in his retirement. Moving forward, it's going to be interesting what he does in the months and days ahead. But like I said, a lot going on. Caleb Farley, another corner, was mentioned. Of course, he's coming out with some injuries, I believe, on his back. But he's been medically cleared from his doctors. So here we go. But Oklahoma Sooners, switching gears here briefly, the Oklahoma Sooners hired, if you missed last week's show, David and I came on and we talked we talked quite a bit, mainly about senior football. Senior football, which we'll talk here briefly. Basketball is hiring. The women, at that time, we talked about the women. They did hire their new head coach. I'm trying to pull it up here real quick. Ginny, I'm probably going to butcher her last name, but Baranczyk, Baranczyk, potentially. Um, coming in, regardless, coming in from Drake, another mid-major conference, taking over, taking over a program that was under Sherry Cole's leadership for 25 years, and is now the new head coach. And we look at Jenny's numbers real quick. 3 straight NCAA tournament appearances from 2017 to 2019, 6 straight 20-win seasons, 2014 to 2020, 5 conference championships, 3 regular season, 2 tournament championships, and a 2-time conference coach of the year. She had a record of 192 and 96 at Drake. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, nothing major news. But there you have it. So if you were listening to last week's, or if you haven't listened to last week's, flip back to last week's episode. Listen to it. Of course, we put our input on Coach Porter Mosier, the head coach of the men's basketball team, and we put on. At the time we had no head coach in the women's, and now we do. Now we do. So definitely check that out. But in the meantime, Oklahoma City Thunder. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Where do I begin? Of course, the tanking, everybody says the tanking. They didn't think the players wanted to tank, traded some more players away, released some. Darius Miller, I believe, was the last acquisition that got released. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's out for the rest of the year. Al Horford's out for the rest of the year. Trevor Ariza never even played a minute on the court. Got traded to Miami. Oh, Lord, have mercy. The team practically disbanded, went out and just literally since. So what has happened since? Well, let's put it this way. You look at the month of April, and hasn't been a good one because they won the last day in the March. They lose to Phoenix 140 to 103. They lose to Portland 133 to 85. They lose to Detroit 132-108. They lose to Charlotte 113-102. They lose to Cleveland 129-102. 76ers 117-93. Utah 106-96 last night. So you're looking at Golden State during this recording, which stays on a Wednesday. You're looking at Golden State, and both teams really struggling. Of course, Oklahoma City's just at this point trying to finish out the year. Golden State's, I don't know if they're in the playoff mix or not. They're trying to get going. My thoughts on Oklahoma City. I looked at the rest of the schedule. I'm not going to read it, but truthfully, they may not win another game. I don't know how far back they are. And of course, I understand how the NBA is. They don't go off of the worst record like the NFL does. It's strictly off of lottery, which I think is stupid, but whatever. Regardless, though, I don't think they'll end up with the number 1 overall pick. They can easily get up there. I understand Cade Cunningham, of course, is the hottest commodity. I think everybody really wants. I know Minnesota is leading that one, but Thunder fans or basketball fans in general, Dan and I talk about this quite a bit on the Time to BS podcast. Even prior to the Oklahoma City Thunder coming to Oklahoma. Well, the Seattle Supersonics coming to the Oklahoma City back in '08. I wasn't a huge NBA fan. Mainly rooted for the Knicks because my dad liked the Knicks. I wasn't a huge Knicks fan. I'm like, oh, cool, they won. Larry Johnson, Latrell Sprewell, Charlie Ward, Patrick Ewing, Allen Houston, if I haven't mentioned him, Charles Oakley, the list goes on and on. Cool. I didn't care about the NBA. Now all the NBA is now is a bunch of ring chasers. LeBron, and if you don't even go with LeBron, if you want to go Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Boston, is, in my opinion, what really started it. You then have Miami, Bosh, Wade, LeBron. LA has what? LeBron, Anthony Davis. I'm sure I'm missing someone. But, and I get this podcast probably isn't the most well thought of. No, it really wasn't. But there's too much going. But, again, Oklahoma City, and what irritates me is when we talk into the season, well, the team had nobody. Well, we weren't going to be competitive to begin with. We weren't. You lose Adams, Paul, Gallinari, a few other ones. I think Jeremy Grant was last year, but eventually Jeremy Grant. But Oklahoma City is not in a win-now position. They're not. They're strictly a young team trying to find their identity, trying to get that right foundation to build off of. New head coach, Billy Donovan, goes to Chicago. Of course, fans are limited. Loud City, and if you haven't been to Oklahoma City, definitely I would check out Chesapeake Energy Arena. That place is loud. Doesn't matter if it's a regular season game or a playoff game. I've been to both. And it's loud. Not saying we would have won more games if we had fans. I'm not. This team is young. This team is going to be good eventually. Now, what is their key to bringing in big time stars? I really don't know. I don't. You can go off of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and that's really about it. I mean, let's just be honest. So, regardless of what the pick for the Thunder is, I think it's going to be a great pick. Whether it's Mitchell from Baylor, I don't know if Suggs from Gonzaga is going to be down there. Cunningham will be a long shot if we get that first pick. But I know a few Thunder fans that listen to the show. And they want to come on the show and they want to argue of why we suck so bad and this, that, and something else, and why are we tanking now, why we should have been tanking in the beginning of the whole entire year. I truthfully love what the Thunder did because the players don't want to tank. They want to win. You can't blame them. They want to win. So, season ends pretty soon for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And, hey, it's going to be okay, Thunder fans. Trust me, I lived the New Jersey Devil years now, and we haven't had a winning season since 2012. We haven't been to we've been to playoffs I think once since, or a few times since. But hey, if you can survive that, you can survive anything. Lastly, it's nothing that has to do with sports. Um, it's more about life, and like I said, I apologize. Right now, sort of apologize. Life gets busy and all this, but you know, 2 weeks ago, I found out, or I got a call that a my former night supervisor that I used to work with passed away. Um, Definitely sudden. As far as I know, it was sudden. I don't think it was anything that anybody foreseed in the near future. All I know is he continued to complain. He just wasn't feeling well, and so on and so forth. I don't know what parts of he wasn't feeling well, and that's perfectly fine. But you look. When I got the call, it was shocking at first. Definitely shocking. One, didn't expect it. Two, you know, you just don't expect things because I met up with him at another former employee at another employee's funeral back in I want to say August, July or August of last year. And then again a few other times from here to there. Um, so I attended his funeral, which took place on Tuesday, and well put together from the standpoint of the protocol, from the funeral service in itself. Saw some former employees, so on and so forth. And I knew yesterday was going to suck. And here's why I want to finish with this podcast. As I mentioned earlier, when I mentioned about COVID and how it affected everyone's life. There's not a single person can sit there and say, "Well, it didn't affect mine." Well, no, it affected everybody's because regardless of what country you were in, you are on some point of a lockdown. You are on some point of a whatever the case may be. We all have to wear masks. There's no in buts about it. And this is where it gets to real reality. As a pastor of the church said yesterday in the service, you look, you don't think throughout life that, oh, I might die. Because in reality, we're going to one way or another, eventually down the road. We're going to die. That's our end all be all. But he put in, which was interesting, the sermon was really good. And it was strictly was this. It talked about legacy, talked about being who you are, talking about just leaving a legacy for his predecessor, your family, if you will. And I'm working on my changes. It's easier said than done. But my personal life thing, I'm going to leave at this. As I wind down the show, is this: continue to live your life, but continue to live your life on purpose. Check on your family. If you haven't talked to your family in years, trust me, I have a family member that I haven't talked to my brother in forever. I don't know what's going on in his life. Check on your family. Live your life out. And continue to be the person that you're meant to be. And I'm not chuckling. I'm actually during this recording. I'm actually hearing these two kids out here. I guess they must have. I don't know what went on, but anyway. But jokes aside, just be you. Never let a moment get by you that you wish you did this or did that and said this and said that. And just tell your family you love them. Hold your loved ones, your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever the case may be, your kids. If you don't have kids, your animals. Animals are just like kids. If you don't have animals, text someone. Text your parents. But just live life to the fullest and live it with purpose. And when it's your time to leave this earth, make sure that you're satisfied because your legacy at the end is what's going to matter. What kind of legacy are you going to leave? As it said in the service yesterday, are you going to leave a legacy that's going to die because no one had anything to say about you? Yeah, they can say things at the funeral, but after the funeral, a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15 years from the funeral, 20 years, 30 years. Eventually, your legacy wants to grow, wants to do this. Or is it going to die 2, 3 weeks after? Regardless, I know my wrongdoings. I know my stuff I'm going through right now is tough, but everybody else has it tough as well. As I used to say on the podcast or on Periscope, take care of each other, love one another, love each other, and I'll see you on the other side. And Daryl, thank you for your service. Thank you for your thoughts, your guidance, and just thank you for being you. And lastly, Daryl, it's been fun. I appreciate. I'm blessed to be working with you for 4 years, knowing you for 6, and trust me, your legacy won't be forgotten. And buddy, I'll see you on the other side soon. Rest easy, my friend. Rest in paradise. I'll see you soon. You've been listening to the Area Tech Podcast on the Unhinged Sports Network.